Hey everyone, John Moran here, and welcome to the third installation of Performance Max. This is actually getting really cool. I like this a lot. I've actually have kind of figured out a way to replace all other campaign types with Performance Max individually. So I have a new model for my search campaigns, a new model for my DSA campaigns, a new model for my competitor campaigns, a new model for my general campaigns, my smart shopping campaigns. I have been using this to actually start cold traffic, remarketing traffic, and almost replicating some of the ways that you can actually use Performance Max to compete with a little bit higher of intent on all the other channels. So today we're going to be talking about asset groups. It might be a little bit longer, but this one is going to do a deep dive into the asset groups. So let's get started. So what is an asset group? An asset group is almost like an ad group used to be. Where how ad groups have groups of keywords and ads, an asset group has a group of keywords, targets, videos, imagery, headlines, long headlines, descriptions, etc. And they're all kind of bundled into one. And they actually now can also attach a specific product to that asset group. So what this means is that if you have an asset group, for example, with 15 different images and 5 different videos and 5 headlines and 5 long headlines and 5 descriptions, and you're targeting a very relevant audience to all that ad assets, you can actually tie it to a listing group, which is a list of products. So it's almost like building a smart shopping campaign with other different campaign types all funneling into one segmented part of your products. And I'll share with you what I mean. Sorry, there's going to be a little bit of blurring. I want to protect our client, but I still want you to get the true value out of this. So before we get into the different types of asset groups you can have, I want to actually share with you what they are and how they work. So inside of Performance Max, you have an asset group, and this asset group is combined of all of the assets plus an audience signal. And we're going to look at the ad assets first. So inside of these assets, you want to make sure that your ad strength is as excellent as it can be. That is going to help you get a best rank everywhere you possibly can. And there's a few things. There's something called final URL expansion, and you can turn this on and off. Now, you can't from the asset group. You can from the campaign level. It'd be really cool if they can have this on an asset group level. But right now, URL expansion is only on the campaign level to have the ability to have all of those asset groups be turned on and off. Now, what URL expansion turned on means is that if Google thinks that there's another page on your website that's more relevant to the page that they're actually driving traffic to from the final URL here, this is actually going to take priority. And the URL here that you'll see is actually going to be coming in from the Merchant Center URL. So again, I'm so sorry this is blurred out here, but this is actually something that is utilized by your Merchant Center. So you can actually change your final URL that you're sending that asset group traffic if you have the URL expansion turned off. I have, let's just say, 15 images and 5 videos, and all my assets are all in one group, and I want to send it all to this one page because it's about this one product or it's about this one service. This works for lead generation too. You can talk about the different types of asset groups based on if you're an attorney and you're doing tax for corporate or tax for personal. You can have 2 different asset groups and say, I really don't mind where the lead comes from. I just need to have relevant messaging to those audiences. So you have the ability to create 15 different images, 1 logo, 5 different videos, and then 5 headlines, 5 long headlines, and 5 descriptions, a call to action, and your business name. And this is all being pulled into a group of YouTube ads, both in the imagery and in the the homepage ad, which is in your feed, your video in-stream skippables. You have Gmail ads, you have search ads, both on search and on shopping. You have display, and then you also have discover, and they're all also built in remarketing. Now, we've seen Performance Max using Northbeam, the tool to look at the top conversion path, that more often the Performance Max is actually the first click to a website, rather than smart shopping kind of being the 3rd, 5th, or 12th click. And this is important because smart shopping does a very good job at remarketing all of your other traffic. And I'm sure everyone's seen this, that if you are running good Facebook and Instagram traffic, you kind of have instantaneous success in smart shopping. However, you're not going to have that in Performance Max, not yet anyway with this initial strategy. And I'll share with you a strategy you can have that. But when you have an asset group and that's targeting cold traffic, it does very little remarketing up front. I like this because it's more proactive, it's more Facebook-esque type of an approach. So this is actually going out into the ether and finding the target as you set up as an audience signal to bring that traffic to your website with all the different ways, shapes, and forms. And this is something that's very excellent. Now, beyond that, after you had your asset group and you actually have instilled an audience signal and you tried to run this campaign for a while, you actually get something called details. Now, In smart shopping specifically, we didn't really have the ability to create different ad sets or any sort of ad assets at all. It was basically just the feed ID, the feed image, and then that's kind of what ran on all the networks. This one is actually going to give you the headlines, descriptions, images, square descriptions, YouTube videos, long headlines, all yada, 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 all the different things that are performing the best, good, and low. And you just want to continually swap out the low to make that overall ad asset better. It's going to tell you what's going to perform best and worst. And now you get to kind of see the narrative here, like what headlines and descriptions are working well, but what type of imagery, what type of videos are working really, really well. So this is really exciting. And then you get combinations, the top image combinations, the top text only combinations, the top video combinations. Really, really, really cool stuff. So you can start to enhance the effectiveness of the ad assets. Now, who is that ad asset going to, you ask? Well, I'm glad you asked, Mr. Invisible YouTube person, because I'm going to tell you. So inside, you have something called an audience signal per asset group. This is unique per asset group. You can blanket them on multiple asset groups. So you can use them unique. But in the asset group here, what you can actually do is start to segment very specifically. My personal opinion, kind of ignore the best practices, kind of bundling them all into one, but you can get really granular and specific and creative with this one, where you can actually take a signal and you can add a whole bunch of cool stuff in this thing. So as an example, custom segments. Well, you can have your custom segments that I've created here, or you could browse and make a new one. And so let's just say I'm John Moran, a Google Ads agency, and I'm looking at Google Ads agency, Google PPC agency, AdWords, people still use that word, agency, and it'll give you a whole bunch of different, Google AdWords ad agency, Google AdWords marketing agency, Google PPC advertising agency. All these are really, really great. What is this, you ask? This is people who have searched for any of these terms on Google. Why? Well, these are going to be used in the search campaign as targeted keywords. So it's also going to be used as targeting for the last 14 days of recent activity to the in-market audience of the people who type this into Google. So whether you're at Google typing it in or you've been to Google typing it in, I'm going to find you on search, discovery, YouTube, display, GSP, shopping, and local. I'm going to find you everywhere. You will not hide from me. So that's the cool part about this, is you can actually start to bring in, this could be one asset group. What is this asset group? Maybe your top performing keywords from your search campaign right into your asset group. This is really cool because now I'm not stuck being slave to the top of the search engine paying $45 cost per click. I'm going to find you wherever you are if I know that this is what you've done. So let's call that an asset group, and then let's run that one. Let's talk about some other things that you can do. Maybe different asset groups like your data, your customer list, your high quality customer list, your customer list of a specific type, which means if you're a attorney, as an example, you do corporate tax attorney and you do residential tax attorney. I don't even know personal tax attorney. My one asset group is going to have ads talking about corporate tax. And I'm going to upload my customer list of my corporate tax customer lists. And now I have an asset group doing a lookalike of my corporate tax going to my corporate tax page with the ad assets of corporate tax. It's all corporate tax, and I have that in one asset group. Let's move on. What about the in markets? Man, let's say tax. So now we have service tax, information about tax laws, proposed tax plans, tax policy, U.S. tax, personal tax planning. You can see all of the different ways, shape, and forms that I can actually go after a person, whether they're in market or if they're in Infinity or if they're another. I basically have a whole bunch of different ways that I can actually now attach an interest and detailed demographic. What is this? Another asset group. So I have an asset group for keywords. I have an asset group for lookalike. I have an asset group for detailed demographics. You can separate these out. Why would you separate them out, John Brandt? Well, I'm glad you asked again. You're a very inquisitive type of audience here, and I'm glad about that. You will actually be able to, if you're in e-commerce, you can see how those listing groups perform differently. If you're in lead generation, you can see how those campaigns perform differently. So you actually can now say, what's my ROAS based on what is my targeted? The customer list was working really, really well the last, blah, blah, blah days, but actually in the last 7 days, my frequently dines out audience is actually starting to perform better. So these asset groups that you have, you can actually compare the results. And if you see one doing better, you can keep it enabled. If you see one horribly working wrong, you can actually pause that asset group. So now you can just kind of shut that whole thing down. It didn't work. So much control over this. For my e-commerce folks out there, after you've dived into the different audience signals you can create and you've created your different asset groups, you can actually, again, now go into your listing groups and say, you know what, this asset group of frequently dines out, I'm going to only show these five products to it. You can kind of, this all should be blurred out here, but you can actually identify that you can subdivide the products that are going to an asset group. Well, why is this important? Well, my asset group might have a specific product in there, so I'm only going to show that one product to that one asset group because it's targeting a very relevant audience with very relevant ad copy, and I only want my shopping campaign going to that group on all the networks of Google. Folks, this is insane. You get all of the other different really cool types. You can even have locations. So your locations, you can even break it down by saying, how is my one asset group going to what state for what product? A lot more control. My e-commerce folks should be singing the praises to the heavens, whatever you believe in, from their chairs right now, because this is basically smart shopping on steroids with everything else that we've been able to achieve inside of Smart Shopping 10x and with control. So my really savvy marketers out there that are making feed optimizations, that are making sure they have the GTINs, this is now opened the floodgates to just everything else that you want. Now, how does this get really, really granular? Well, inside the asset groups, and if you upload a customer list as an example, the customer list is actually going to be targeted by Google. These audience signals aren't targets, they're polite suggestions. And it says, hey, if I have my customer list, Google says, your audience signal has been added. Performance Max will go beyond your selection to find new conversions based on your goals. So this is not a target. This is a direction. This is a set your compass to east and head that way, and whatever you find, you can change directions along the way. Google, you're allowing it to have a polite suggestion. Well, why is this important? It does optimizations for you in all 6 networks of Google, but you still have control over what's going on. What I mean by that is if I wanted to run a competitive campaign and I want to use Performance Max, instead of competitive campaign on search, you know what I would do? I would have an asset group to all of the people who typed in the competitor name inside of Google. And I would also say their URL address. Their URL address is the same as actually as the search bar. The URL bar and the search bar in Google are the same bar. So if they type in the URL to the actual URL bar, it's going to be like they typed in the search bar. So you can actually target a competitor's URL based on that feature. I've actually essentially replicated now a competitive campaign, but I've done so 6 times. What I mean by that is if I upload 5 different images of saying me versus whoever, and I have 5 videos as to why we're an amazing agency, and before you choose another competitor, maybe this is what you have to ask yourself. That could be my videos, my headlines, my long headlines, my descriptions can be all why you should go with us as a company. That, and then only showing that to people who have Googled my competitor's name or been to my competitor's website. And I'm now attracting them on all 6 networks of Google. So that is a competitive campaign that you don't have to run on search anymore. You've actually developed a 6-pronged strategy within 7 if you're going to use local. 7-pronged strategy within Performance Max, but to a targeted audience. And now Google can still go outside of that. That still will happen. But what I've seen so far is Google will attack that audience first. Great. If it attacks that audience, I still win. But if it attacks that audience and finds more conversions outside of that, I win again. And this is how you use this for the Audience Insights tab and how you grow. The reason why in this account I saw that I needed to have a frequently dines out category is because when I looked at my Performance Max Insights tab, this whole thing comes full circle now. When I look at my Audience Insights tab, I noticed that week over week, the frequently dines out affinity, not even in market, is worth 35.9% of the share of the conversions. 35% of the conversions that are coming in this account are in the frequently dines out. That's awesome. And if you look at the index, which is simply just the score strength of the audience segment, they're 1.4 more common in my conversions than the traffic from the general population. So I have a better chance of converting these people. Well, awesome. If they're a high converter and they have a good index, I'm going to make a new asset group and target those people. I did that. I made a new asset group called Frequently Dines Out, and I did the Frequently Dines Out audience signal. Google said, hey, that's not best practice. I said, I don't care, Google. I like money more. And I launched this thing, and you can see just in the first couple of days of this being launched, I'm getting a 1.04 ROAS that frequently dines out, rather than 0.43 and 0.37 from customer intent and customer list. My customer list remarketing, which is huge, is having more engagement with a bigger audience, but I'm getting double the ROAS and double the conversion rate on this new affinity audience. Who knew of affinity audiences would be beating customer lookalike audiences? That doesn't happen, but Google told me it was going to happen. I listened, I did it, and it worked. So this is amazing stuff. This is all coming full circle now. Remember in the other video that I shared with you that you have actually the capability of looking at the search terms? Guess what? Because those search terms are converting, make a new asset group to those search terms that are performing, and that is now going to be the way that you double down on this. So a lot of cool stuff. I'm going to have some more videos coming out. I don't want to have this whole thing be just about that, but I wanted to share with you some of the new results that are coming out in Performance Max, and this stuff is getting crazy. I am going to be able to replicate all of my traditional marketing campaigns inside of Google Ads inside of Performance Max, and I'm going to have a much better result. So stick with me. Come along for the ride. This stuff is getting crazy. Thanks so much. Bye.
Wait, before you go, I'm constantly looking for amazing people to come join our team. So if you're passionate about Google Ads and you're passionate about customer success, please go to soul8.com/apply, and we'd love to see you as a part of the Solutions 8 team. Also, if you like this video, give us a thumbs up. It lets the YouTube algorithm know that we actually know what we're doing. And don't forget to subscribe. We shoot a video every single day, and I don't want you to miss out on any of it. Lastly, if you have questions, comments, concerns, confessions, or you just hate my face and my voice, go ahead and hit us up in the comments. We get very little human interaction, and even the heckling is something that I kind of get a kick out of. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being subscribers if you're a subscriber. Don't forget to apply if you're interested in working at Solutions 8. Otherwise, I'll see you tomorrow.